Let's close out with some free agency hate headlined by Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert. Just this offseason, Matthew, he has lost Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett. They have brought in, and this is the most Harbaugh player list ever, Gus Edwards, 2 tight ends in Will Dissly and Hayden Hurst, and center Bradley Bozeman.
Yeah, by the way, and what he also gained was he gained Jim Harbaugh as a coach. We just talked about this with Gus Edwards. They are going to be one of, if not the most run-heavy team in the NFL. I think Jim Harbaugh is a hell of a coach, and they're going to play good defense, and they're going to run the hell out of the ball. And so I think it is great. If you are a Chargers fan, this is great. If you are a manager that has Justin Herbert on your dynasty team, this is awful news because he ain't chucking it. He ain't chucking it. First off, even when he does throw, who's he throwing to? But the fact of the matter is they're not going to throw. Herbert is going to be a much better real-life NFL quarterback than he will be fantasy option. I think you can make a strong argument that Herbert should not be a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year.
Yep.
Which is crazy to think about when you think about his skill level.
Yep. Herbert's been a trendy kind of sleeper for MVP because, new coach, team should be better. I don't think he's going to win MVP because how's he going to get the stats? He's just going to have people to throw to. And they're going to run the ball a ton. So, yeah, I think if you're looking for sleeper picks, I would stay away from Justin Herbert for MVP.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Both Titans running backs make the hate list here, Jay. Tony Pollard, the newly signed Pollard, got $10.5 million guaranteed. Tajay Spears, who we really liked last year, in for year 2. But it feels like these guys, their work is going to eat at each other. It's going to be a split share.
That's the thing. If it was just one of them on the team,
You
obviously they'd be on the love list. But the fact that they're 2 and they're guys with 1, Spears now has a bit of pedigree and showed a lot last year. 2, Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard was, potential ride or die candidate for you going into the season because of what we expected from him. And he got paid, and they're both going to get, I think, a pretty even share of work. This probably is the backfield that is the cleanest 50-50 split in the NFL, I would think. And so they're going to provide fantasy value and be startable, I think, in deeper leagues. But I don't think you feel great about either of them.
But again, just think about he goes from hate is all about what happened, right? And so Tony Pollard goes from being the main guy on one of the best offenses in the NFL to being in a committee on one of what at the moment we expect to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. And maybe they're middle of the pack. Again, we just talked about it with Will Levis. They're adding the offensive line. They're adding some more weapons. It's second year. Bill Callahan's there, so that should be good run blocking. But still, from the Cowboys to the Titans is a downgrade. From having to compete with Rico Dowdle for touches to now having to compete with Tajay Spears, that's a downgrade. Tony Pollard makes the hate list.
Yep. I said deeper leagues. Tony Pollard's going to be startable in every league. He's still going to be a guy that you can roll out there, but I think the thought is that if Pollard lands in the right spot, then maybe he could be a guy who's a legit RB1, and I don't think he has that ceiling of Tajay.
You'd feel a lot better if Pollard had been re-signed by the Cowboys, or if he'd gone to Houston, for example, instead of Joe Mixon, that kind of thing. But yeah, on Tennessee, splitting time with Tajay Spears, who we really like. So, Pollard was not good last year. Among qualified running backs in fantasy points per touch, Tony Pollard was 45th. That's not good.
No.
That means, I'm going to break this down for everyone at home. They were on a fantasy points per touch among qualified running backs. There were 44 running backs better than Tony Pollard last year. That's not good.
Yep.
No one's out there going, give me running back 45.
Yeah. It's kind of mathematical analysis Matthew brought to Bet the Edge. That's why he's part of the universe.
Return guest. What is it? One of
part
the
of
stars.
the
yes.
One of the stars of Bet the Edge. Matthew, I know you like
BTEU.
I know you like both these players in Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler.
BTECU. It's the BTECU.
The
Bet the Edge Cinematic Universe. Yeah.
That makes sense. Coming
BTECU.
Coming to IMAX near you. You can watch Bet the Edge at 6 a.m. on IMAX every morning.
Yes.
The lead into Dune 2.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get you in the sphere.
Yeah.
Let's get that you and Drew up in the sphere.
Okay. Next up on the hate list, 2 players you really like in Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, but together, kind of a little bit of a mess. And this team needs to rebuild their offensive line, by the way, as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big area of need. Everyone's so focused on the Commanders and what they're doing at 2 at quarterback, rightfully so. But the offensive line is also a massive area of need here. And so Robinson and Eckler, 2 of my favorite players in real life, they're splitting time on an offense that, the jury's still out on what Cliff Kingsbury is going to be able to do with a rookie quarterback, and we'll see in the offensive line. So certainly Brian Robinson went from a situation where he was going to be the main guy with Antonio Gibson moving on to New England, and Austin Eckler, who was the main guy in Los Angeles, and now the 2 of them are splitting a backfield. Certainly Robinson, who we'd hoped would get more passing game work this year, That's not going to happen with Eckler in town. And Eckler, who got all the touchdown equity the last couple of years with the Chargers, obviously that's not going to happen now with Brian Robinson, who's likely to get the early down work and, of course, the goal to go work as well. As you see Eckler's jersey behind me, we're going to have to update that. We got Eckler's number 30 for the Bolts. Proud fantasy life investor, Austin Eckler. Beloved commander for life now, Austin Eckler. But fantasy value-wise, it's down for both B-Rob and Eck.
Another running back on the hate list, Jay. DeAndre Swift got the big money deal from the Bears in the first 2 hours of free agency, $15.3 million guaranteed. But how much of the focal point will Swift be in an offense that has a lot of talent right now and a lot of mouths to feed in the backfield?
Yeah, it's also not clear he's the best or even the second best running back on the team. I mean, he was fine in Philadelphia, but pretty underwhelming after that massive game he had early against the Vikings in week 2. So, yeah, I don't know. I think the team will be throwing as well. How much do you think Caleb Williams will get him involved in the passing?
There's no training wheels with Caleb Williams. He's good in and outside the pocket. He's a full field reader. He's got a quick release. Like, this isn't a guy that you're saying, oh, we need to let you drop back 15 times a game because you're a rookie. This offense is ready to throw.
Well, sure. And by the way, in college, he didn't throw a ton to the running back well, right? And so DeAndre Swift last year, 10% target share in 2023. That was the lowest of his career. It's really weird because DeAndre Swift, when he was in Detroit, was like he was this pass-catching running back. Yeah. And now they go to Philadelphia and they use him completely differently than how he was used in Detroit. But the fact is it's hard for you to see a clear path for him having passing game usage with the Bears when you consider you've got Herbert and Roschon Johnson there. Last year, 3 different Bears running backs got at least 110 touches. And so Caleb Williams, who at least traditionally has not dumped off to the running back, he's got other weapons, obviously, in the passing game. And so, the pro or Swift argument is, hey, he got paid. He's going to be the lead running back on what we expect to be a good offense. But the anti-argument is like, you've got 2 other competent guys there. They've got a lot of mouths to feed, and he may not have passing game usage. So Swift is probably going to be a better real-life NFL player than fantasy asset this year with the Bears. But so certainly going from Philadelphia, where he was kind of the main guy, to Chicago, where it looks like he's the head of a committee, downgrade for DeAndre Swift's fantasy value.
Kind of a funny one here, Matthew, with the Vikings. Hate lists for Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, their wide receivers, but you love it for Sam Darnold. You don't love that they get Sam Darnold, but you love for Sam Darnold that he has them.
Again, it's all about what their fantasy value was prior to these moves. Sam Darnold was backing up Brock Purdy in San Francisco, wasn't going to get anywhere near the field, barring an injury. Now, and we expect Minnesota to draft a guy, and there's whoever that person, if they move up to draft J.J. McCarthy, McCarthy's probably starting day 1. But as we sit here today, Sam Darnold is the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings in a fantasy-friendly offense with the great guys to throw to. So his fantasy value is certainly better than it was backing up Brock Purdy in San Francisco. But going from Kirk Cousins to Sam Darnold is a downgrade for Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. More targets available with KJ Osborne moving on to New England. Okay, fine. Justin Jefferson's still a wide receiver 1. You're still drafting him high. But for a guy that was the consensus number 1 pick in fantasy football last year with Kirk Cousins under center, you don't feel as good about Jefferson this year off of a season where he had a major injury and now has Sam Darnold and or a rookie throwing to him. And same with Jordan Addison as well. Like, it's a down. Whoever their quarterback is, it's going to be a downgrade from Kirk Cousins last year. There's no question. Cousins played very well last year.
Yeah, I think with Jefferson, it just makes him a lot more high variance of a player because there could be games where Darnold just melts and he goes 4 for 36. Now, Jefferson also put up some monster games with Nick Mullins where the team is probably just going to be worse and they're going to be playing from behind more often, and Jefferson could just have these insane stat lines, but there's not going to be the stability week to week or the high floor.
I mean, it just... Weeks 1 through 8 with Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson was the 3rd best wide receiver in fantasy on a points per game basis. Without Kirk Cousins, starting in week 9, he was wide receiver 8 on a points per game basis. Again, he's still a wide receiver 1. He's still somebody you're going to draft high, but that's probably about right, by the way. He's, he goes from a top 3 guy to like a borderline top 10 guy,
One last wide receiver on the hate list here, Calvin Ridley.
Addison obviously, by the way, Addison from wide receiver 13 to wide receiver 43. Yes. With Cousins,
well,
without
he's the
Cousins.
guy, really, because Jefferson's always going to get his to a degree, but Addison may not.
Right.
KJ Osborne going back, 2nd year in the league for Addison. I still like Addison skill-wise, but there's no question this is a downgrade for him in a bigger way than it is for Jefferson.
Calvin Ridley makes the hate list. Similar situation, right? This is great for Will Levis. How good is it for Calvin Ridley? He gets the 4-year contract, $50 million guaranteed. And how pass happy will this offense really be in Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen. Like, we don't know what kind of offense Brian Callahan's going to play. We don't know how good Will Levis is going to be. Yeah, I mean, like, last year they were a very conservative offense, but awful offensive line, teams falling around apart. We have no idea on Will Levis. Again, I personally root for the kid, but talent, we just don't know. And so going from whatever you think of Will Levis, I think it's fair to say that this next year, he's likely not as good as Trevor Lawrence was last year, even though it was a somewhat down year for Lawrence. So it's a quarterback downgrade. It's an offense downgrade. I don't think the Titans will be as pass happy as the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. Remember, the Titans 30th in pass attempts last year. Jacksonville was 6th. And even if we expect the Titans to throw more under Brian Callahan, it's hard to see them getting up into the top 6. So less volume for Calvin Ridley. I would argue just as much target competition. Like, he was competing with Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. Now he's competing with Treylon Burks and DeAndre Hopkins and Chigakonkwo. Ridley's the number one there, but like, it's not like there's no one else there in Tennessee.
And the running backs can catch the ball.
Correct.
In Pollard and Spears, they'll be involved. One more on the hate list here, Jay. Cole Kmet, who's a really good player in his own right. The Bears just have more pass-catching talent now with Keenan Allen in the fold and DeAndre Swift in the fold.
I mean, a lot of Cole Kmet's value historically been is there's just no one else to throw to, and he has to be the guy, and he was pretty much the entire of the middle of the field of their offense. And now you have Keenan Allen, who runs a lot of tight end type of routes. You have DJ Moore, obviously, who does a lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage as well with the shorter stuff. So yeah, there's just there's just a lot of guys there now, and you'd expect that Cole Kmet. I mean, is he going to be draftable?
I know, and by the way, also Gerald Everett's there. And I mean,
good.
again, not that Gerald Everett is but if Gerald Everett takes 20 red zone targets over the course of a year away from Kmet, that's big.
They might draft Roma Dunze at 9.
I mean, that's
not
right.
off the table.
Right. I mean, so I think Kmet is a really good NFL player, but in terms of, he was a volume-based tight end in fantasy last year, and I don't think he gets the volume this year based on all the moves the Bears have made. So, unfortunately, Cole Kmet makes the hate list.
There you go. I was waiting for that.
There we go.
I was going to do it, but I
Perfect way for the show to end.
Yes.
There you go.
End.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.